The ache for justice, when the need to understand becomes its own vortex. One of the most overwhelming experiences after narcissistic abuse is not simply grief, loss, or anger. It is the drive to know. This drive is not intellectual curiosity. It is not a hobby of self help. It is a survival compulsion. It is a desperate attempt to rebuild an internal map when the old one has been burned. From the very first shock of discard, a question arises and never stops. What just happened to me? Who are these people? Why do they exist? What is this disorder? Was it all my fault? This is not idle rumination. This is an affective seizure, a psychic recoil against the annihilation of meaning. Survivors do not want justice, they want justification. They want to know why they were erased, why their minds split open, and why no one around them seems to understand. This is the point where the lack of justice becomes a second wound. The absence of truth, the absence of explanation, the absence of shared language is almost as destabilizing as the abuse itself. The relationship's speech patterns, private jokes, shared understandings, all the covert communications and emotional signaling, these were not just habits, they were a reality field. They were the confabulated glue of the shared fantasy. When it ends, that glue turned into fog. The survivor is left navigating a landscape made of shadows and missing pieces. In this state, the compulsion to research, to investigate, to figure them out is not pathology. It is an emergency reconstruction project. But here is the paradox. The more you search for external answers without rebuilding your own inner frame, the more the vortex deepens. Each article, each diagnostic label, each story of someone else's abuser adds pieces to the puzzle. But without a stable center, the puzzle never stops moving. The drive for justice becomes a substitute for self, and the search for understanding becomes a new shared fantasy. Except now it is with an idea rather than a person. Professor Sam Vaknin's work is a lifeline for all of us because for the first time, the behaviors are named, the disorder is mapped, the cold empathy, the shared fantasy, the coercive snapshotting, the introject handover, the bad object transfer. All of these mechanisms are exposed. This naming does not heal in itself, but it is the first moment of real attunement. It is the first time the survivor's reality is mirrored back without idealization or annihilation. Vaknin provides clarity on behaviors. MPIT extends this by mapping what happens inside the survivor, the collapse of object constancy, the inversion into pseudo narcissistic architecture, the reflexive loops of self punishment, the frozen imago at the center of the psyche. Under MPIT, this drive for justice is reframed as a form of displaced survival energy. The survivor's nervous system, robbed of external regulation, surges with hypervigilance. The organizing gate is blown open. ASR1, the annihilatory stress response, floods the body. ASR3, the anticipatory shadow reflex, hijacks the psyche, generating loops of internal arguments with introjects, the ex-partner, the flying monkeys, the parents, the friends who misunderstood, the voices of shame. This is why the search feels so desperate. It is not just traumatic cognitive dissonance. It is a nervous system trying to reassemble reality in real time. This is also why it feels insane. Survivors report sleepless nights, scrolling through articles, rereading old texts, running mental detective work on timelines, recreating arguments, trying to prove to themselves what they already felt. They are not crazy. They are trying to metabolize a psychic poison with no antidote. The drive for justice is, at root, the drive for coherence. But here is the pivot. Justice is not what saves you. Understanding narcissistic personality disorder, reading everything, diagnosing them perfectly, none of it will return you to yourself unless it is paired with the work of rebuilding internal attunement. You will not find the missing pieces of you in their pathology. You will find them in your own nervous system, in your own stillness, in your own capacity to tolerate not knowing long enough for the truth to emerge inside you. MPIT frames this moment as the return to verticality. On the horizontal axis, the search for objects, answers, external validation. There will always be more data. On the vertical axis, self-authorship, internal anchoring, the capacity to sit with your own unprocessed affect. There is clarity. The ache for justice is real, but if left unexamined, it becomes another shared fantasy with an invisible partner called the truth. The work, therefore, is not to suppress the drive to know, but to contextualize it, to understand that your perception was not simply wrong, it was colonized, it was idealized, it was mirrored into unreality. The goal is not to perfect your old perception, but to build a new one from scratch. This takes time. It takes repeated micro moments of pausing, of feeling your own body, of letting your mind race without obeying it, of letting anger emerge without turning it inward. This is where MPIT meets the survivor, not with false hope of instant justice, but with a map out of the vortex. It shows why your perception was compromised, why your nervous system feels like an electric fence, why you are obsessed with knowing, and why you cannot stop thinking about them. And it shows step by step how to shift from horizontal scanning to vertical presence, from searching their pathology to authoring your reality. The lack of justice is not the end of your story. It is the first crack in the old confabulation. Through that crack, the real self begins to emerge. Peace out. Loads of love.